If you're moving to Rochester, Minnesota, this one decision could cost you tens of thousands of dollars if you get it wrong. Should you rent first or buy right away? Because what most relocation buyers don't realize is this: there's no safe default choice here, and doing nothing is still a decision. One option feels safer and the other one is safer. And most often, people don't figure which one applies to them until it's too late. Hi, I'm Kelly Domaille with Domaille Real Estate at eXp Realty right here in Rochester, Minnesota. And my husband Bruce and I, we specialize in relocation, especially physicians, professionals, and families moving here for the Mayo Clinic and other surrounding healthcare systems. And today, I want to walk you through the real decision behind renting first versus buying right away here in Rochester. Not the advice you hear online, but what actually plays out here every week. Before we get into this though, please take a second to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that bell below because we post weekly videos to help you move here to Rochester with clarity, not regret. Now let's talk about the mistake most people make right out of the gate. Most relocation buyers think renting first is the smart move. And what they don't realize is that in Rochester, renting can quietly put you behind fast, and here's why. Rochester is not a typical rental market, and it's definitely not a typical buying market. We have a constant influx of residents, fellows, visiting physicians, and professionals rotating in and out. That keeps rents really high and inventory tight. So when people say, we'll just rent for a year and figure it out, what they often experience is this: higher rent than expected, limited rental options, and zero return on that money. We see 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom rentals that really rival mortgage payments and sometimes exceed them. And that's the part no one tells you up front. Now, renting feels flexible, but it's expensive flexibility. And now that doesn't mean renting is always wrong, but it does mean renting without a plan is where regret starts. So let's talk about when renting first does make sense. Renting first works best in Rochester when time is your biggest unknown. If you're only here on a short-term contract, or if your department or your role might change, or if you truly don't know whether you're going to stay beyond a year or two, in those cases, renting buys you clarity, not comfort, but clarity. And it gives you time to learn the layout of Rochester, how different each quadrant feels, what daily life actually looks like in the winter, and how your commute fits into your real schedule. But here's the key. Renting only works when it's intentional. You're not just waiting, you're learning, because renting without direction usually leads to rushing later. And that's where people get stuck buying the wrong house. Now let's flip to the other side. Buying right away in Rochester is often the smarter move when you understand the market. And this is where most advice online completely falls apart. People assume buying immediately is risky, but in Rochester, the risk is often waiting. Why? Because desirable neighborhoods move fast. New construction has limited release cycles, and prices rarely move backward in a meaningful way here. We see buyers who rent for 1 year and then come back shocked by what's changed. The same home they passed on is now $30,000, $40,000, or $50,000 more. Rates have shifted. Inventory has tightened, and suddenly their buying power looks smaller, not bigger. That's the part no one plans for. Now let's talk specifically about relocation buyers tied to the Mayo Clinic. If you're a resident, a fellow, or an early career physician, this decision gets even more nuanced because some residents assume renting is the only option, but that's not always true. Depending on your timeline, your loan options, and your long-term plan, buying can actually stabilize your costs instead of watching rent increase every renewal. So we've worked with physicians who bought during residency, they built equity, and they sold cleanly when they moved on. We've also worked with physicians who rented for 3 years, they paid a premium the entire time, and they walked away with nothing to show for it. Neither choice is wrong, but guessing is. Now let's talk about new construction because this is where many buyers miss their window. If they're considering building or buying newer homes in areas like Byron or just outside of Rochester, Waiting can quietly push you out of options. Builders adjust pricing and lots release in phases, and once they're gone, they're gone. So we've seen buyers plan to rent just 1 year only to find out that the community they wanted is sold out by the time they're ready. And that's a tough lesson. If you're relocating to Rochester, download our free relocation starter kit below because it walks you through this exact decision step by step before your pressure hits. Now, most people don't look at this until their lease is already signed. So let's talk about lifestyle because this is where the decision really lives. Renting delays commitment. Buying creates roots. And in Rochester, roots matter. Because people who buy sooner tend to integrate faster. They learn the neighborhoods, they build routines, they find their people. And people who rent often feel temporary, even when they don't mean to. So that feeling shows up especially in winter. It shows up socially, and it shows up when they start questioning whether Rochester really feels like home. Now here's the truth people don't expect. The regret isn't about renting or buying, it's about choosing without understanding Rochester first. We see regret when people rent in the wrong area. We see regret when people buy too fast without context. And we see regret when people listen to generic advice that doesn't apply here to Rochester. Rochester is its own market, its own rhythm, and its own rules. So what's the right move? Well, it depends on 3 things. Your timeline, your role, and how committed you are to staying. So if you're staying more than 2 or 3 years, buying usually wins. If your future is unclear, well then renting can be a bridge, not a pause. But either way, you need a plan, not a guess, not a default. A plan built around Rochester, not where you came from. And that's what we help people do every single week. So if you're relocating to Rochester and you want help deciding whether renting first or buying right away makes sense for your situation, download the relocation starter kit below. It lays this out clearly without any pressure. I'm Kelly Domaille with Domaille Real Estate. We live here, we work here, and we help people just like you move here with confidence. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.